Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with the big man. Yes. Here you go, buddy. And Mr. Simba, you're going to come over. Simba's going to come and say hi. Let's see if we can get Miss Nala to come over here too. I got to distract Simba. And there we go. Miss Nala's sneaking over in the back. All right, this is the dog's roadmap to success. Before I kind of summarize all the stuff we covered in this session, it's really important to understand that when we're doing this, we really need to think about this. When you're doing dog behavior modification, essentially it is a strategy that you're trying to incorporate. And just like any other strategy or method, if you have people that are not working with you, it's going to really be difficult. And so, and a lot of us, we don't think about it that we're not cooperating because we're living our lives. We're paying attention to our thing. And sometimes we don't realize that we're not celebrating, like I'm going to talk about in a minute, or whatever it is. And a lot of the stuff that I go over seems really simple, and it's really, really easy to do. I'm not lazy, but I like doing things as easy as possible. So over the last 10 years, I've tried to come up with, through trial and error, a lot of things that work, but training for dog behavior modification is very much a numbers game. So you really have to get in. If everybody's involved, if one person's doing 20 things a day, that's great. If you have 3 or 4 people doing 20 things a day, that's close to 100. You're gonna make faster progress. So I'd invite, hopefully we can get everybody in the family, and we didn't talk about this, I'm assuming that the family's on board, but watching this video and coming back and watching this video again, I have videos for all the individual stuff we're gonna talk about here, but if there's any of these things that don't make sense, let me know. But if everybody gets in the habit of doing it, we really will make a lot faster progress. Now, I'm not going to talk about the barking so much because the video above really addresses that. The only thing I would say is just make a list of all the things and systematically handle them as you go. You can work on a couple of things at the same time, not immediately at the same time, but try not to, if you try to do counter condition everything all at once, sometimes it can be overly taxing. So pick the ones that are most prevalent and happen the most frequently and tackle those first, and then kind of handle the other ones as they go, and gradually go from one knock, from a very soft knock to a very loud knock with no barking, and then we go back to a very soft for 2 knocks and then very loud. For the trash truck, we would maybe do a treat at the end of the beeping, and then the next stage for the compressor going, and the next stage for the sound of the door closing, and so on and so forth. Now, you can also, if you record sounds of those things, you can play those sounds while the dogs are eating their food, and if you record them, so you can control the volume. Remember, if your dog's reactive, that means we just played a little bit too loud, so find a way to make it easier to turn down the volume. All right, so let me see what else. We started off by talking about marker words. The guardian here is already using a marker word, but there were a couple times where she was using yay instead of yes, and also talking to the dog. So what I like to say, when you say the marker word should come the instant the dog does the thing you want, unless the thing you want has duration, like going potty, and then it can come at the conclusion of that. And there's a difference between yes and yes. And so when we say it, just the dog's butt hits the ground for a sit, you say yes. Wait 5 seconds before you say anything else. So that yes really stands out there. Also, when you're doing it for the pause interrupter sound that we went over, you might want to go around the house and go beep, beep, beep. Give the dog, yes, I saw you, you heard that one. And then give the dog treats. But that's the response you're looking for. So if you say beep, 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 and he did it, but she's not doing it, we need to continue loading the word with her until when we say that sound, she's responding. That's the reason we use it as a pause interrupter, because again, if we give attention, we tell the dogs to be quiet for barking, that's the same thing as giving them a treat. But if they are about to bark and we say beep, 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 and they look and we hold a treat, we've redirected and distracted them, again, part of our master strategy to prevent them from doing it in the first place. And also keep in mind that every time a dog does the unwanted behavior, that kind of undoes some of the positive things that we've done. I also talked a little bit about nomenclature. A lot of us, we say the dog is naughty or a bad dog for barking or whatever it is. We assign our own attributes to it. For the dogs, I want to bark because I think it's important to let you know that there's an invader right up out there trying to take our TV, and I barked and I made them go away. And if you tell me to be quiet and I'm trying to tell you your house is on fire, I'm not going to stop telling you that your house is on fire. I'm probably going to tell you louder. So, and that's one of the other drawbacks to telling a dog to be quiet is a lot of times we're actually going to cause them to bark more and louder because you're not hearing my message. So remember, all behaviors trying to achieve something. Try to figure out what your dog is trying to achieve and then figure out a way for them to get that without having to offer the behavior. So in this case, we are going to make all the sounds into a positive. And not amplify it by trying to punish the dog. Just punishment. This is why punishment-based training is people aren't doing it anymore. Dogs don't learn. You only have about 2 seconds after the thing happens for the dog to make that connection, but they think about things differently. So again, punishment or correction just doesn't accomplish the same thing that it does for humans, where if I get punished for something, they're hopeful that my punishment caused me to reflect on my previous behavior and influence it. Dogs are very instinctive creatures. It just doesn't work that way. All right, so we also went over, I recommend the Guardian use the touch, I believe is the word that you use, and practice the heck out of that one. That's an alternative way of recalling the dog. We can also reposition the dog that way. We also went over dog consent. That's the lesson of not petting the dog on top of the head, because that's associated with dominance, and instead petting in this oval area, under the chin, on the chest, or on the 2 shoulders, because that's what dogs find that appealing. And you can tell if the dog's nose goes up when you're petting them, that's usually an indication they're comfortable. The nose up when you're reaching over the head, it's a little bit of a misnomer, because you reach over the head, they will kind of do that because they're kind of looking up to what you're doing. But often it's come by licking their lips and turning aside or getting a little stiff. So remember, cutoff signals are leaning away, turning away, lowering the head, backing away, refusing to come to you, freezing, looking at you with whale eye, going from an open mouth like that would be a big cutoff signal. Rolling over and showing you the belly. Please don't do whatever I think you're going to do. That's being submissive. Baring teeth or growling are pretty egregious. That means we weren't listening to the lessons. You want to get down, buddy? I'll give you an elevator ride if you do. So watch for those cutoff signals. And so if you're trying to trim your dog's nails and it pulls its paw away, like he just did, he's saying, I didn't like that. And he's like, hey man, I'm going to lick you. I like being petted instead. So if we're watching for those things, if we're not listening to our dog's signals, then the dog doesn't feel secure and confident. That's going to make them more anxious, and in this case is going to contribute to their barking. So these things are interconnected, although just not in a straight line. And remember, if people want to meet your dog, just say, yeah, hold your hand out in front. They like to let them sniff first. And if the dog turns its head aside, I say, oh, I forgot. My dog has ringworm. I found out of the vet, and we're not supposed to have any people touch it because it's contagious. People will back away. One of the dogs is Nala is pretty barking. People still approach. As soon as she barks the first time, I just say, sorry, rescue dog. She just barks when she's scared of people. If you preemptively do that, a lot of times those people keep on walking by. I think most people try to go and pet a barking dog because they're trying to help you. They think that they can help. But if I'm freaking out about something, the person coming over that I'm freaking out about, trying to give me a shoulder massage, is not going to help me freak out. They mean well, but it's not going to help. Now, we also talked about really manners. Most studies show that we give dogs attention about 75% or greater of the time when they are doing what I call undesired behaviors: barking, jumping up, stealing toys, digging holes, chewing the furniture. And when the dogs do what I call desired behaviors: sitting, coming, laying down, looking us in the eyes, going to the dog bed, drinking their water, grabbing a toy. If we don't ask for it, we only reward it about 25% or less of the time. Well, all attention is validating for dogs. So if barking gets attention, or stealing the furniture chewing the furniture or stealing things gets attention 75% of the time, and sitting gets it 25% of the time, what am I going to do? This is just a mathematical equation. So we want to flip that by celebrating the behaviors your dog does that you like. So every time your dog comes to you, yes, and pet under the chin. Every time they sit down, yes, and pet them on the scratch in the chest. If they're laying down, yes, and scratch their butt. The more that you reward your dog for the things that you like, the more your dog will start offering those. And I have so many clients whose dogs now learned, I'll go sit in front of people, and if they don't start petting me, I will resit, and I'll resit again, because in my mind, that's the proper way to ask for attention, because we've repped it a lot. So celebrate, tell each other in the house. So if I'm sitting here and the dog walks up and lays down and I'm not paying attention, and she says, celebrate to me, I would say, yes, and I scratch the dog's butt. I don't need to know what it is. I don't ever reach for a treat. I'm just going to say yes and pet them in the appropriate place as quickly as I possibly can. Eventually, you want to be mindful of it. So if you see the dog running over here to get on the steps to get up on the couch, you know he's going to come up here. Say come, or excuse me, here is the word we were going to change to, as the dog's already coming here. Remember, we want the word to precede the action. Only say it once. So that's why we don't repeat a word multiple times if we're not sure a dog's going to do it. So eventually we say here, the dog's trotting over here anyways. It gets here, yes, and then pet him. That makes them more likely to want to do that again in the future. That's celebrating. So say celebrate to each other as your cue to do it. And I know it seems like for a month, Jesus, I'm celebrating everything. Yeah. And we're not celebrating the barking. After about a month and a half to 2.5 months, somewhere in that range, the dog will figure this out and start offering those behaviors more and more. And the more you reward them, the more they'll offer them. It just really is a domino effect. Now, the companion piece of that is what I call manners. If a child tells their parent, I want chicken nuggets, Daddy, Dad might say, would you like to ask for that again? If it's a little kid and the little kid says, Daddy, can I please have some chicken nuggets? And then Dad goes and makes the chicken nuggets, because I want the child to understand that asking in a polite way gets you what you want. So we do a do-over. I'd like you to do the same thing for the dogs. Now, if you want to pet the dog for no reason, that's totally fine. It's not what I'm talking about. Dog comes up and barks at me, says, give me some attention, and I pet it, or I say, stop that. Either one of those are reinforcing that behavior. So instead, the dog comes up and barks at me, I would say, sit. If the dog sits, I'm only say it once. I say it once, and if the dog sits, I say yes, and then I pet it under its chin. If it doesn't sit, I just lean back, pull out my phone, read some emails, strum the guitar, have a conversation with my wife or whatever. It's okay, buddy. Yeah, you get some imaginary sound there. But we're going to tell the dog to do something else. So we're rewarding the dog for the action I'm asking for. And essentially, we're teaching the dog to say please or thank you. And if you recognize, you come in the room, and after a while, the dog will come and start sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. When it does, now we're celebrating that action. And that's different, just like with the little kids. If we tell a little kid, hey, I want you to share your game with your sister, well, then I can't play the game. I'm losing something. But if mom and dad recognize that I say, here, you want to play the game? And then they make a big deal of it because I shared, I didn't feel like I was losing it. They're rewarding a noble or a desired behavior. That's what celebrating is. Manners is when you're redirecting your dog into doing something when it asks for attention in a way that isn't as polite as we would like. It's not dominance, it's not force, it's not punishment. But if the dog does what you want, it gets reward. If it doesn't get the reward. There's no punishment, but it's not getting the attention from you. I would also do the same thing if the dog wants to get on your lap. I would make that an invitation in your lap. So you're choosing for the dog to get on your lap, not the dog deciding for you, which is climbing up and spazzing out. And again, loving on your dog is never a wrong thing to do, but if you do it at the same time that the dog's doing unwanted behavior, you're reinforcing the behavior you actually don't want. Most of my clients actually are the cause of their unwanted problems. Yes. So don't be that. Use celebrating and say manners to each other. So if I'm petting the dog that's standing and somebody comes and says manners to me, they're saying, David, I think you may have forgotten to pet the dog, ask the dog to do something to pet. They don't know that maybe I just felt like petting the dog, or the dog, I'd already asked the dog to sit. So even if I did it right, I would say stop petting the dog. I would say sit, the dog sits, pet on the chin, say, actually, Dad, I asked the dog to sit, and when he walked to the room, he stood up, and I continued petting. But thanks, I do sometimes forget. And again, if you want to pet for no reason, that's okay. But it's really you're redirecting the dogs in that pet. Now, we also talked about exercise. These dogs are getting a good amount of exercise, but we could probably feed them out of a snuffle mat. That would help. Feeding out of a snuffle mat is almost like they're earning their food, they're hunting. That boosts their confidence level, and that also drains energy. So you're accomplishing, and it slows down the feeding. So you're accomplishing 3 things as opposed to a slow feeder. So we could also get treat dispensing toys and puzzles. And so that way the dog's got to use those. It just knows to get those. Because these two have kind of gotten into each other for toys, I would get an X pen. You only need to get one about 24 inches tall. It's about 12 inches, I think 24 inches wide, and so it'd be a square for you. And it folds down. It's 8 panels. You can make it any shape you want. You can put it around here, and then one of the dogs can be in there chewing up, playing with the toy. The other dog can't get to it, so you're preventing any fighting through essentially a little bit of maintenance or a little bit of management. Sniffing on walks burns more energy than just walking, so let your dog sniff on walks as long as it's safe to do so. Let me see. Tug of war is a great way to burn energy. Playing fetch. Now, playing fetch, throw the object. And when the dog brings the toy back to you, show them you have a treat. If they don't come to you, show them you have a treat. If they drop the treat and come to you, don't give them the treat. So only when they come back to you with the object, hold the treat up to their nose. Don't say anything. When the dog drops the object, say yes, put it in their mouth, and do not pick up the object. Most of the time, dogs don't drop it because I'm worried that you're a thief. And then when I drop it, yeah, you just take my stuff. You prove that you're a thief. So instead, you'll just rep it a lot. So you hold the ball, the treat up to their nose. They drop the ball. You say yes, put the treat in their mouth, and don't grab it. They grab the ball again. Repeat it. And after the dog's doing it a lot, then you pick up and say drop as you present it to the nose. Then they drop it. You say your marker word, put the treat in their mouth, and eventually you have a cue. Now you can say drop. Your dog drops things. If your dog ever has something it's not supposed to have, make sure you trade it. So if you get them a drop and then you have to take away the shoe or whatever, give them a bully stick. or something that's equal or greater value so they don't feel like they're losing out on the equation. And there's also mental stimulation. Feeding out a snuffle mat is a good example of that. Same thing with training. Training is drains energy. For training, keep it to 3 to 5 minute training sessions. Always end on a positive note. So that's what the dog remembers the best. I also went over cookie in the corner. That's where we threw one treat. The dog went and got it. I said yes. Then I said here. The dog came back to me. I said yes, right, it arrived. And then I give it a second treat. And then I would throw 2 treats and say yes, yes. And then here, and the dog comes back. So we're sneaking in a here practice. And I work up to about 5 treats. Make sure you don't do it in a place where the dogs can't get to, and don't do it in an area you don't want the dog searching for treats. I'd like you to search and Google scent games. Find 2 or 3 more scent games that you can do in the house. So now you will have a way to practice exercising your dog and giving them some mental stimulation without you having to go outside in the very busy neighborhood. Dogs usually need exercise about every 2 to 4 hours. So if you can alternate between physical exercise like a walk, and then some scent game, and then feeding out of a snuffle mat, and then some training, and then a little tug of war, and then another 3 minutes of training, and then a game of fetch, and each one of these is 2 hours apart. We're practicing 2, 4, 5 minute practice sessions or training sessions, maybe 2 or 3 minutes with each of the big dogs and 1 or 2 minutes with the little dog. You're really setting them up for success. So you can do that before you're going to practice the counter conditioning or any other exercises, or before busy times in your neighborhood. So that way the dogs are less likely to want to bark. Now, if you have, I probably forgot some other things. Is there anything else you want me to cover in this?
Find it.
Oh yeah, find it. I don't think we talked about that. So say find. Well, I guess we said find it for the.
I did just want to clarify though, because you said you do the 1 treat, you say find it, and then here, and then 2. Do you say find it?
Yep. Every time I throw it, I say find it. Yes. Okay. And when you're on walks, do that on walks, and don't do it just when there's somebody nearby. So every once in a while, there's a grass section. Say find, touch the dog's nose so it's watching. Find it. Try to throw it in grass so it's a little bit higher, so the dog's got to use its nose to find it. That drains more energy on the walk. Also, your dog's kind of sniffing the ground looking for more treats. Be careful. This is Santa Monica, so you might get some nasty stuff. That's why you might want to teach a leave it, and I've got a video for that if you want to watch that as well. But this way, if you do see a skateboard or somebody coming by, way at a block, the closer they get, the more dangerous it is for the dog, or more they're likely to be reactive. So basically, if you see a skateboard at the end of the block and you say find it, and the dog goes here, and then you say find it and they go here, 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 you can lead them away from the street. When your dog is reacting to something, the best thing you do is increase the distance. So if you get in the habit of find it for no reasons, now you say find it, the dog's like, oh, this is the game, and then you throw it further away. So as the skateboarder is getting closer, you're having the dog go further away, so you're balancing that equation. And the more that you manage the situation, the less your dog has to. Now, I probably forgot a bunch of other things that we covered in this session, but if you have any questions on any of this stuff, please text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. So please call or text me. I have videos like the one we've done on counter conditioning on all sorts of stuff I'm happy to share with you. I don't charge for that, and I want to be there for you. Let me try to adjust this a little bit. Yes, well, I know that was not the best. That was not the best camera work, was it? Well, this is my buddy Simba, and he's saying, hey, I want to get some screen credit. This is Miss Nala, and the big man's down there on the floor, and I'm David, and this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog or dogs, only sometimes you mean it.